What do you say, everybody? With Tony Tsoukalas, I'm Mick Gillispie, and this is Monday Night Quarterback. We do this every Monday at 6 o'clock throughout the football season, right here on your favorite YouTube channel, Bama Insider. That's right, where we cover the Crimson Tide each and every day throughout the entire year. We've got Andrew Bone, who handles our recruiting. We got Kyle Henderson, our managing editor. We got Trey Yannity. I'm Mick Gillispie. That's Tony Tsoukalas. He is our beat writer. So if you want to be part of it, all you got to do is hit the thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll know when we have different things going on. And there's something going on here on our channel or on BamaInsider.com constantly. And we appreciate you being here tonight. So we're going to talk about Alabama as they get ready to take on New Mexico State. We'll recap a lot about the LSU game, which Alabama won, but it wasn't pretty. But let me remind you guys that Monday Night Quarterback is brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. Westgate is 200 feet away from Bryant-Denny Stadium, right there in downtown, right there on campus. I mean, right next to Bryant-Denny, 200 feet away, 900 to 3,000 feet, square feet. Luxury condominiums available right now. If you want to buy, you get the awesome game day experience. You're right next to the quad and the campus and the strip and everything else, including football. So definitely something to check out, westgateal.com for more information. All right, Tony, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Just kind of it's a weird time of year for me because it's we're doing football, but now we're doing basketball and we got the rankings now. So it's always something, like you said, real busy time in Bama Insider.
Yeah, I mean, look, basketball's nationally ranked this year, another big-time recruiting class. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But we're talking football right now. Alabama is number 2, at least they were last week, in the college football playoff rankings. And let's just start with the good right away. You know that this guy right here, William Anderson, is as hot of a player in college football, and he's leading Alabama's defense.
Look, if I had one vote for an Alabama player to be the Heisman contender, no offense to Bryce Young, who's having a great year as well, I'd go with Will Anderson. I think that he's the best player on the team, and I know defensive players don't tend to win the Heisman. They haven't in a while, especially not defensive edge players. It's normally like a guy that can contribute in special teams a little bit more than Will does. But I mean, look, this guy has 21 tackles for a loss through 9 games. That's incredible. He just had 4 against LSU. He was probably the biggest reason why Alabama won. He's a missile coming through the line. He's tough. He can shove off of offensive linemen, or he can race past an offensive lineman. And he's just kind of a nightmare to scheme against. And I think we really saw that against LSU. And I just personally think he's one of the best college football players I've seen in person. And I think he deserves all the recognition that he's getting.
Nick Saban was asked about him today in his Monday press conference. Let's listen to Nick and talk more about Will Anderson.
SEC Player of the Week, a Defensive Player of the Week. A guy had an outstanding game for us, and he's played extremely well all year, and certainly didn't disappoint anybody in this game. I think New Mexico State is
definitely didn't disappoint anyone in this game. When you're really good, that's kind of what you get from Coach.
Yeah. I mean, well, he's expectedly good, and he's not somebody that's going to even take you by surprise as you come to the game and you expect to see Will Anderson show out. And the thing about him is, sometimes you get a star player and it's kind of all about me, and that's just not that with Will Anderson. I think he's an ultimate team player. I mean, he's the kind of guy that, if Nick Saban could just like build a defensive leader, that's what he's going to build. You know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe he'd have him at Mike linebacker so he could call the defense, but I don't think Nick Saban would change anything about Will Anderson. But yeah, he's exactly what Nick Saban wants at that position. A guy that's both tough on and off the field. He's a warrior. He's played through injury. He played through injury against Florida. You didn't really notice it because he had such a great game, but he's a guy that is extremely talented and also just a leader. He's going to make some serious money not next year, but the year after that. assuming he stays healthy, because he's everything that, an NFL team would want as well. If I'm an NFL scout, I'd be somehow campaigning to draft him next spring. It's not going to happen, but he's already next level good.
I don't think Alabama wins against LSU without the performance that Will Anderson had.
I definitely don't think so. The offense wasn't going, and they needed some of those stops. And it's not just the stop itself; it's the energy he provides. He can kind of breathe life into the defense. Look, Alabama was punched in the mouth. They went down 7-0 early. The fake punt kind of got them. But then they responded from that. And a lot of that had to do with Will Anderson. Dallas Turner was also really strong on the other side of the ball. Got to give credit to him. And I think things are going to get better. We didn't see much of Drew Sanders, although he did come back. I think we'll see more and more from him as he kind of gets back to full health with that, kind of thumb wrist injury. But Alabama's pass rush shouldn't be the issue. They're having a ton of sacks. Also another guy that we should talk about from that game against LSU is Phidarian Mathis, a Louisiana native who had a big game himself. So between him and Turner and Anderson, I think that was the three biggest defensive guys, in my opinion, that game. And yeah, the Alabama won the game on defense, not on offense.
Well, Alabama does beat LSU. It doesn't feel like a win, but it looks like a win on paper. And if the Crimson Tide win out, then they'll have the opportunity to play in the SEC championship game against Georgia. And Will Anderson, SEC Defensive Player of the Week, certainly deserves that. He was the good. I guess the bad would be the offensive line. I don't think that's being too critical. Let's listen to Nick Saban, Tony. Well, Tony, go ahead and just kind of comment on that, and then we'll play some clips from Nick Saban today.
Well, the offensive line has already kind of been up and down this season, and then they lost the starter on the first drive in Darian Dalcourt, so you had to put Chris Owens at center and then put Damian George at right tackle, and they just couldn't move the ball on the ground. 6 yards rushing is the fewest that Alabama's ever had since they started keeping stats, I think, in the 1940s. So,
no, really?
Yeah. I mean, well, 6 yards. Can you imagine? When's the last time Alabama prides itself on running the ball? So 6 yards, you know what I'm saying, is nothing. So. Now some of that has to do with sacks, but still, I think Bryce Young got sacked 4 times. So that doesn't help. That's still also the offensive line contributes to that as well. So it wasn't not a convincing performance. And, I was just on the radio, Mick, and so they asked me, how does Alabama fix it? I don't think you really have enough time in this season to just kind of make mass changes on the line. I think you're kind of with who you got. Mm-hmm. You got to have these guys step up across the board. Maybe everyone really besides Evan Neal needs to step up drastically.
Right.
And I don't think you can just say, chuck this freshman on in game 10 and expect him to lead you to a national title. There's a lot more to the offensive line than in just pure talent. And obviously if these guys are ready, they would have came back, and they would have definitely come back after the bye week when they had some time to kind of gel a little bit. So I think the fact that Alabama is going with a veteran group probably means that it's younger, very talented offensive linemen who are waiting in the wing. They're just not ready yet. So if Alabama is going to be successful, it's going to have to do it with this unit.
Well, let me just throw this out, and I'm not disagreeing, but on the other hand, I mean, it kind of reminds me of when Jalen Hurts was quarterback. It was getting really hard for Alabama to move the football. We knew Tua was in practice. At least I had heard that he was in practice doing really well. But Nick Saban was very hesitant to make the switch. Eventually he did that in the national championship game. Do you think that could be the case too? I mean, George came in and played well. And what about some of the other guys?
I mean, George, didn't actually, he was the worst run blocking grade according to Pro Football Focus. I'm not trying to trash the kid at all. And, to come in and do what he did, I think he only allowed 1 pressure. So, kudos to him in that regard. But it's not like he came in and lit the world on fire on the right side of the ball. I think that if any of these kids were stepping up to that point, I think you probably would have seen them chucked in this game. That, coming out of an open week gives you kind of a chance to change things. And so the fact that they, haven't done that probably is an indication that there isn't that Tua I guess offensive lineman that's really tearing it up behind the scenes.
Fair.
I don't think he's there. I don't think that they're ready. And then also it's different too. You need the 5 guys playing together They need to gel. They need to be used to each other. The offensive line works as a unit. So if you just start subbing people in and out, you're going to pay the price of that. So it's not that easy. And to be honest with you, even if it was, I'm just not sure Alabama has that. And I'm not trying to down these 5-star kids. I think they're still going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look at a guy like J.C. Latham or Tommy Bruckenmeyer. These kids are going to be great, but it's a rarity. And Alabama has been spoiled in the years to have guys like Evan Neal, Alex Leatherwood, who can just step in and play right away. That just doesn't happen as much as, you know, it's looked like in the last few years. So you can be a talented offensive lineman and still not be an Evan Neal.
Okay.
You know, the fact that he was able to come in and do what he did the last 3 years, continuing this year as well, he's just a stud. You know, I mean, it's you can't expect freshmen to be as productive as he was. So,
well, let's hear from Nick Saban. Here's some comments about the offensive line. It was a hot topic. You were there today, Tony, when Nick Saban spoke to the press.
Darian going out kind of affect the way that unit played?
Well, I think Darian going out certainly didn't help the issue any. You know, Chris got moved in, new right tackle. Right tackle did pretty well in the game, actually. And, you know, Chris hadn't played center for a while. We had a couple snap issues. And, you know, a couple times he probably, you know, could have executed things a little better. I think he did a good job relative to the reps that he had. So we need to be more prepared that if something like that happens, that, you know, guy's going to be confident enough and I think Chris was confident enough, but that he can go in there and, you know, get the job done and do well. But that's no excuse. We need to be able to execute, and everybody's got to be able to do their job.
We'll go to Mike Rodak.
Just how did Bryce get through the game physically? And what did you see on some of those plays where he got hit between the 4 sacks and some of his scrambles?
Well, you know, we didn't protect.
Yeah, I thought that was a big comment right there. We didn't protect. And here's one more thing, Tony, that he said today, and then we'll kind of just bunch it all together and let you comment.
Had a culture of toughness around here, so I'm always looking for.
Let me rewind that back because I think
we'll go to Michael Casagrande.
When you watch offensive line films, what are some of the things you're watching more closely that maybe the common viewer might not be noticing?
Well, you know, first of all, we've always had a culture of toughness around here. So I'm always looking for, you know, how physical we playing, how tough we playing, how we finish in plays, how we protecting our skill guys, as well as, you know, the technical aspects. Are we doing things technically right? Footwork, hand placement, you know, targets, you know, those type of things. And those are all things that we need to improve on.
All right. There you go. I mean, he's put it out there. I mean, he says he looked for toughness, not to say that this group is tough or not tough. He talked about Bryce Young getting hit a lot, not protecting. And even something that we didn't play, you know, he said it didn't feel like Alabama football watching the film.
I mean, it certainly didn't look like Alabama football. Alabama's prided itself on running the ball. I mean, maybe it looked like Alabama football on the defensive side of the ball, but on the offensive side of the ball, it's been, you know, I know the last few years they've really lit it up through the air, but I mean, when you look at the ethos of what Alabama football's been over the years, it's been running the ball and running it with authority and knowing that if you needed a yard or you needed to get some yards on the ground, that you could go to that. They certainly couldn't do that over the weekend, and that's something that, you know, as an Alabama offensive lineman, you'd think that you'd take personally. So I'm sure that they're going into this week, you know, a little ticked off. I mean, because this is, you know, it's a shot to their manhood almost, because those are the kind of things that's expected out of Alabama. So when you get your head coach commenting on physical, you know, not being physical enough and not looking like Alabama football, those are shots. And I think as an offensive lineman, they you know, I would want to respond, you know. You know, just one of the things though, you know, that I found interesting, we talked to Emil Ekiyor, and he said that, you know, there's this narrative that the Alabama offensive linemen just lost the one-on-one battles. And he said that that's not really the case, and that, you know, LSU had a really good game plan, and you know, they kind of knew that coming into the game. And so, I mean, some of that might also fall on, you know, Bill O'Brien. He didn't call out Bill O'Brien in general, but that comes to scheming. I mean, if LSU was out scheming Alabama, then there's only so much that the offensive lineman can do. I don't think this is merely a case of the offensive linemen just doing their job and being out schemed. I don't think that happened. I think you can watch it and see that, people were beaten, but that's probably worth considering. It's not all that. It's not like these people just totally failed. I think there's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Alabama and LSU, the final score was 20-14. But this guy here, I'm going to put him up on the screen. That's the head coach of LSU, 1-5 against Alabama in his tenure, says that he feels like LSU is the better team in the game.
Yeah, I mean, he did, and I don't think you can say that. I don't believe in moral victories. I think the better team's the team that won, and it's not even like it wasn't a case of where LSU got jobbed on a call and they were clearly the better team. Alabama was the better team. I think LSU played better towards what they had on the field. You got to consider that they were without 9 starters on defense, and the fact that they still held Alabama to what they did was inspirational. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think not one for moral victories, but if there is a moral victory, that is one. The fact that they were able to do that. To say that they were the better team, though, I mean, I don't agree. I think now I do agree that if they had those 9 starters back, they probably win the game. But based on what we saw Saturday, obviously Alabama was the better team. Alabama won the game. I mean, but I think if I was reading between Ed Orgeron's lines there, I think he's just more proud of LSU had no business making that game as close as it was supposed to be, or as close as it was. Sorry. So the fact that they did that's a testament to them and their fight, and so he has all rights to be proud of his bunch. And you know what? If he wants to say that they're better, who can blame him? Because I mean, I think that if I was a head coach, especially they're playing for a head coach that's out of a job. So right. I think that was a real inspired effort for LSU, and he should be really proud of that, and they should be proud of their team because they outplayed Alabama in terms of the talent that they had left. But Alabama's talent level is higher, and Alabama outplayed them in the game. But yeah, so I kind of get what Ed Orgeron's saying, but I don't agree with the overall message.
There were 6 points that separated Alabama and LSU, and Alabama's now beating them, 11 out of 12, right? Is it 11 out of 12?
Yeah, it's been a lot. I mean, they had a big stretch. I have to go back and look. But
something like that.
I think that 11 out of 12 might sound right. I know they had the big streak before the 2019 game. So whatever that
9,
was.
10, 11 out of 12. Yeah, because they 9 in a row. And then, but look, the bottom line is this. I mean, the Alabama played their worst game, and LSU played their best game. And Alabama still won. That ought to tell you all you need to know. A
win is a win. And let's not pretend like LSU doesn't perennially recruit top talent. So it's not even like these. They're just like Alabama in the aspect of, they're bringing in these top recruits. So even LSU's second and third string guys are still good players. It's not like it's not like New Mexico. Now, if New Mexico State takes Alabama to the brink, I think you start to look at a win's not a win at that point, But LSU has a quality roster. I mean, this is a team that won the title 2 years ago. Things have gone haywire in that program, and that's the reason why they're getting rid of Ed Orgeron. But from a talent standpoint, it's there. So that just shows you the level of SEC ball. That even a team like LSU, where things aren't going super well, when things any given Saturday, I hate to be cliche, but that can happen.
Guys, as you hang out with us here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell. We really appreciate you hanging out with us. He's Tony Tsoukalas. I'm Mick Gillispie. And look, this wasn't on our agenda, but when you hit us with a super chat, we will go to the line of scrimmage and we will audible. So, Brandon, we appreciate you hooking us up with the high five. We need to get more skill players involved to reduce the stress on the O-line. Look, you can read through the names. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I feel like there's supposed to be game breakers somewhere, and I would love to see some of those guys.
Look, here's the thing though. Like, yeah, of course you want to get playmakers involved, but this fascination with Ajay Hall is kind of, to me, I don't get it. The guy had one good spring game in an exhibition game, you know. It's not like Nick Saban's sitting here rubbing his palms together trying to stick one on Ajay Hall. You know, if he was good enough to play,
He'd force his way in.
Like Nick Saban's like trying to win despite something. You know what I'm saying? Like obviously there's some kind of hole in his. Maybe it's his consistency. Maybe it's his blocking skills. I don't know. I haven't seen it in practice, and obviously we haven't seen enough from him in game to make that kind of evaluation. But I just don't buy into this narrative that like evil Nick Saban or evil Bill O'Brien's just locking Ajay Hall away in the basement and not letting him play. You know, he's a very talented receiver. We saw that in A-Day. There's more to just talent than, you know, like it's the same thing we were talking about with the offensive line, right? So it's more than just talent that gets you on the field. And here's the thing too, what happens if Ajay Hall is just killing it? I'm making speculations here, so like I'm not saying this is what's happening, but let's just even indulge the people that think that he's just this game-changing receiver that could totally transform the offense, right? Even if he is that, then obviously he's doing something so wrong off the field that Alabama is choosing not to put him on the field. And even if that was the case, which I don't think it's necessarily that, then kudos to Alabama, because if you let that kind of stuff go, that's when your locker room falls apart. So I don't think it's that. I was just using that as an example. But there's obviously, the point I'm trying to make is there's obviously a reason why this kid's not playing. There's not a vendetta against him. Alabama recruited him for a reason. He's going to be a big part of the offense if he decides to stick around. And I think that, you know, Alabama fans want that, and I think so do Alabama coaches. So I think there's not a divide here. I think Alabama coaches obviously want success as well. I feel like there's something about Ajay Hall that we're not seeing. And that if you did play him, there would be probably a hole in his game at some aspect, and that's why Alabama hasn't gone with him. It's the same thing with Jacory Brooks. It's the same thing with all the receivers that haven't played. They're probably not performing as well as the Trayshawn Holden, who's really taking his game to another level. Obviously, we've seen JoJo Earl step up and get those opportunities. And we've seen those guys do it, and I think that's for a reason. It's not like, I don't think Nick Saban's playing favorites.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Tony. How do you feel about Alabama heading into the last three games?
You know what? They're gonna win. I think they're gonna win them. I think that's not enough. And there's a popular, you know, Chicken Little complex with the Alabama fans, especially on our board, that, you know, just think that they're going to get embarrassed by everybody that they play from now on, you know, and then Auburn's going to kill them in Auburn. Look, this Auburn team couldn't score against Texas A&M. You know, even out with Alabama's struggles, they were scoring against Texas A&M. I think Alabama should beat everyone on their regular season schedule. So they're obviously not going to have any trouble with New Mexico State rather. And then I think I like their chances against Arkansas. I think it's going to be kind of similar to the Ole Miss game in terms of Arkansas kind of plays that drop back defense. I think Bryce Young's going to carve it apart. And then you look at that Auburn game, I mean, that's definitely the most challenging of the three, but I think when you're looking at it, Alabama's got a much better team than Auburn. And so I would just pick them to win. Now, if they have a stinker against LSU, like they did against LSU on offense, I think Auburn is in a little bit better position to beat them than LSU was. But I don't even think they need to be perfect against Auburn to win that game. Things are just a better team. Now, the thing is, if you barely get by against Arkansas and you barely get by against Auburn, what makes you think you're just going to snap back into it and just play this great game against Georgia? You're not. If you're not playing at that consistent level, then you're not going to be able to do that against Georgia. And I think that's what Nick Saban's kind of trying to instill in his team. They shouldn't have a problem with these next games coming up, but you need to establish that trend or that level of consistency so that when you get to an SEC championship game, it's not shifting up 3 gears. It might be shifting up a gear, but you can't just expect them to go from, you know, a 6 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10.
Yep.
It's unrealistic.
So you're pretty much saying that you think Alabama's a lock for the SEC championship game. If you think they're going to roll through Arkansas and Auburn, then that means you've got Alabama and Georgia in. And I don't hear any kind of worry in your voice at all.
I don't. I don't think that they're going to get. Now, do I like their chances against Georgia? Not at all at the moment. I think they have a team that's talented enough to beat Georgia, but I would not pick them at all against Georgia. I think I'd pick Georgia by probably 10 points at this point. At this moment, if they were playing Georgia next week, I'd pick Georgia by 10. But I just think there's a huge difference between a Georgia and an Arkansas and a Georgia and an Auburn. I mean, we saw that when they played. So I think Alabama should be able to handle those two teams. But that's not, like I said, that's not the question. The question is, will they be ready when the time comes? Because I don't think anyone's going to be, at Alabama, you don't care about being an SEC West champion and, losing to Georgia in the SEC championship game and then playing a meaningless Sugar Bowl game. I don't think anyone's going to be like, oh, well, that was a great season. I think
right.
I think they're going to be circling this at this time. In a couple months, if they lose to Georgia, they'll be saying like, what a disappointing season this was. They couldn't, do this or that. I think the Auburn game is losable, but I don't think they'll lose it.
Yep. Very interesting. I think Auburn's going to be a really tough test for this team. They haven't played well on the road, except the game against Mississippi State. They struggled against Florida. I mean, look at, what a disaster that season's turned into. They were, obviously they got beat by Texas A&M. They haven't played a lot of road games, but it's always tough when Alabama heads down there to play Auburn. Anything else, Tony? Jump in.
Mick, I'm going to have to kind of pop off for a second. It looks like a little bit of a breaking news here. Alabama defensive back Marcus Banks looks like he's entering the transfer portal with 2 years left of eligibility. So I'm going to have to get on that. But
before you get off, what does that mean? I mean, just give me like 2 minutes here or a minute. Just what does that mean for Alabama?
It's just going to be a little bit, obviously it's a hit to Alabama's depth in the secondary. Now we saw Kool-Aid McKinstry come in for Josh Jobe. So obviously he was that next guy up. Maybe that had to do a little bit with Marcus Banks' decision, kind of seeing the writing on the wall where you have a freshman jump ahead of you for that position. But Marcus Banks is a talented kid, and he's a kid that's probably going to go to another school that, we saw Ronald Williams make a difference at Michigan State. I think Marcus Banks is going to probably do that wherever he lands. So he's, we've seen kids leave. We saw Brandon Turnage leave and win SEC Player of the Week in Tennessee. So just because Marcus Banks didn't make it at Alabama doesn't mean that he's not talented. And I kind of expect him to land on his feet moving forward. And it's a hit to Alabama's depth in the secondary, but they also have other guys, and I think they'll be fine there. But that's something to watch moving forward.
All right. Well, Tony, thanks for hanging out tonight, man. I'll let you go chase that down.
Yep, man. See ya.
All right, that's Tony Tsoukalas. I'm Mick Gillispie. Let me remind you guys that Monday Night Quarterback is always presented by the great people at Westgate Luxury Condominiums right there next to Bryant-Denny Stadium. What a gorgeous place. Hung out there after the game on Saturday for the post-game show. You're talking about all of the home games at the Skygate Club, which is just fantastic. You can see right into the stadium from up there. Catered game days, unparalleled service, luxury condos with high-end finishes, appliances, and more. There's a lot of reasons to buy one of those right now. It's an investment. I mean, you talk about you can earn rental income, on-site hospitality team to handle all owner and guest requests of all kinds. I mean, they're fantastic. The service there is the best. Access to world-class housekeeping and maintenance crews. It's immaculately clean, and they have a website and digital marketing services for your resident to maximize revenue and distribution. So maybe you're not going to, you're going to buy it. You're going to go there on game day. Maybe you rent it out, whatever. Check it out. And you can do that by calling 855-287-1318 or westgateal.com. But it is fantastic. Always love going there. And the people that take care of us there, they do it the right way, and they'll do you the right way as well. And I'm telling you, the other part of it too is you got these huge balconies, oversized balconies that, give you a great view of campus, the stadium, Tuscaloosa. You got a proximity that's just amazing. 200 steps away from Bryant-Denny. 1 to 5 bedroom condominiums range from approximately 900 to 3,000 square feet. And they start out at 490,000. So, for some of you guys that are looking for an investment, Westgate Luxury Condominiums right there next to Bryant-Denny Stadium, as you see there on the screen, is definitely worth taking a look at. All right, guys, look, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Like and subscribe, hit the bell, be a part of this. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll have Andrew Bone's recruiting show with Trey Yanity. That'll hit tomorrow. We'll also be on when the college football playoff rankings are released for the second straight week. That'll be Kyle Henderson and me. Wednesday, we'll have the Pick the Score contest with Trey Yanity and Kyle Henderson. And then Friday, come hang out at Innisfree on the Strip in Tuscaloosa. If you're in town for the football game, we'll be there 6 to 8, as always, recording the Bama Insider Tailgate Show. And then back at Westgate Luxury Condominiums after the game on Saturday. I'm Mick Gillispie for Tony Tsoukalas. Thanks for watching, guys. Roll Tide.